The National Desk, America's News, now.
Arctic weather conditions bring record-setting lows from the Rockies to the Gulf Coast as the majority of the country deals with dangerous cold.
A great majority of them are actually in famine, not just at risk of famine.
As food shortages turn into famine in a now 100-day war, a possible breakthrough deal to get more aid to starving Gazans as the threat of a totally destabilized Middle East grows more severe. Then a new warning against a popular beverage that was once seen as an important source of fruits and vitamins for children and adults alike. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. At least 30 states are under alert for dangerously low temperatures today as the Arctic blast across the country continues, bringing temps 30 to 50 degrees below normal all the way from the northwest to the South Gulf Coast states. All-time lows were set today in various areas. Houston just 19 degrees this morning, a new record at Bush Intercontinental Airport, while Denver tied a 94-year-old record at 19 degrees below zero, also set on January 16th in 1930. This cold snap is putting a test on power grids across the country, but they are holding up for now. According to outage tracker poweroutage.us, only 2 states have 10,000 or more outages. Oregon leads the way with more than 56,000 without power right now after significant snow. Louisiana also on that list. The weather is also causing a number of flight disruptions. According to FlightAware.com, more than 2,300 flights were canceled into or out of the United States today, and airports across the country delayed nearly 7,300 flights. And new tonight, for the third time, the U.S. has carried out an airstrike against Houthis in Yemen. A U.S. official telling Reuters that the sites were struck because they were preparing to target ships in the region. Keep in mind, Houthi attacks on Red Sea shipping has continued despite joint strikes by the U.S. and the U.K. last week. Over the last 2 months, beginning on November 19th, Houthis, they have fired multiple times, at least 27 times. In fact, the group saying that its campaign at hitting ships are aimed at supporting Palestinians in Israel's war in Gaza. The attacks have disrupted global shipping and stoked fears that the war underway against Hamas could destabilize the Middle East. This as the search for the 2 missing U.S. Navy SEALs continues into its 5th day. They disappeared during a secret U.S. mission that we're learning tonight intercepted a boat shipment of Iranian missile parts headed for the Houthi rebels in Yemen. The small sailing boat with the weapons was sunk by the U.S. Navy, and 14 crew members on board were taken into custody by American troops. This as Israel's war in Gaza continues with intensity. Right now, a near total internet blackout in the Gaza Strip has surpassed 96 hours, making it difficult to operate emergency services as the war surpasses a grim milestone. 10,000 children have been killed. That's according to health authorities in Hamas-run Gaza. Hamas, meantime, fired 25 rockets into Israel just this morning, the largest barrage we have seen in weeks. And tonight, the UN Emergency Relief Chief warning that Israel's war in Gaza has brought famine with, quote, incredible speed. Martin Griffiths saying a great majority of 400,000 Gazans deemed at risk by the UN are already starving.
You really, really worry about the plight of the future of Gazans, and you worry hugely about the generational hatred that is going to be created by these facts.
Griffith says he's concerned this will negatively impact Israel's long-term security. But it comes as we learn of potential hope. Qatar and France brokering a deal with Israel and Hamas to allow more aid into the most affected areas in Gaza in exchange for the allowance of urgent medication to 45 Israeli hostages being held by the group. The aid is expected to leave Qatar for Egypt on Wednesday before being taken across the border into Gaza. Meantime, here at home, a ceasefire demonstration that ended with 150 arrests. A group of at least 200 that describe themselves as Christian Mennonites blocked an area inside the Rotunda Cannon House, singing hymns demanding lawmakers support an end to the war in Gaza. And tonight, the second civil case in a pair of defamation cases against former President Trump by author E. Jean Carroll underway right now. Carroll says she was sexually assaulted by Trump in a dressing room nearly 30 years ago. Trump suggested she made up the story. A court has already ruled against Trump in the initial case. The secondary case we're talking about now, which began today, will determine if the former president will need to pay additional damages for defaming the writer after the assault took place. Trump made an appearance in the courtroom for jury selection and is expected to testify. A House Rules Committee planning a meeting today did not include a debate on Hunter Biden's contempt of Congress. This is a sign that the ongoing negotiations between Oversight and Judiciary Committees and Hunter's lawyer, Abby Lowell, are progressing and that Hunter may testify under oath in a closed-door deposition soon in exchange for not being held in contempt of Congress. The Supreme Court ruled today it will not get involved in the transgender bathroom debate. This decision upholds the Seventh Circuit appeals in Chicago that ruled transgendered boys can use the boys' bathroom. An appeals court in Atlanta had ruled against the practice, with the Supreme Court saying out of it both rulings stand and the bathroom debate remains a state-by-state issue. Currently, 9 states have restricted bathrooms use to match the gender students were born as. The alleged Gilgo Beach serial killer has been charged with a 4th murder. Rex Uerman is now accused of murdering a 25-year-old Connecticut mother of 2, Maureen Brainerd Barnes. She disappeared back in 2007 while working as an escort. Uerman has pleaded not guilty.
He said, I'm not guilty of these charges. He's looking forward to fight these charges, and we're doing that.
He's also charged with murdering 3 other escorts and due back in court again next month. The House Select Committee on the coronavirus pandemic is out with a new update on recent closed-door testimony with the former director of the National Institutes of Health. Here's national correspondent Christine Frizzell with more.
As a mystery virus spread like wildfire throughout the globe, Dr. Francis Collins was in charge at the National Institutes of Health, issuing calls for action and orchestrating the public response.
There is this issue about children getting infected and then infecting others around them that may have an immune system that can't handle it. And that's one of the reasons I think we are so concerned.
A just-released email shows part of his response included calls for a, quote, quick and devastating takedown of a policy known as the Great Barrington Declaration, which outlined grave concerns about the damaging physical and mental health impacts of COVID lockdown policies, especially on children. GOP lawmakers revealing Dr. Collins, in closed-door testimony, also now concedes the lab leak hypothesis that the virus may have started in a lab in Wuhan, China, is not a conspiracy theory, though in the height of the pandemic, it was deemed as such, an opposing theory much more widely accepted.
It's much more likely that this was a natural occurrence.
Dr. Anthony Fauci remains a top target for Republicans, who argue his decisions cost lives, and his statements on the origins of the virus meant those who disagreed were punished.
He tried to downplay any idea that this could be coming from the lab. He convinced people like Twitter and Facebook to downgrade these stories.
Senator Paul now calling for more action.
In public, he still denies it. He still denies that there was any U.S. funding of the gain-of-function lab in Wuhan, but he just hasn't been honest. So for his dishonesty, frankly, he should go to prison.
Democrats continue to defend Dr. Anthony Fauci, praising his work as a public servant. They're also blaming Republicans for politicizing the pandemic, promoting vaccine hesitancy, and spreading misinformation.
There is a complete dismantling of the importance of what vaccinations actually have done in this country and how many lives they've actually saved.
As a new wave of COVID spreads, how it all began and how those in charge responded remains under the microscope on Capitol Hill.
And Christine Frizzell joining us now from the D.C. Bureau. And Christine, what is next in this investigation?
Well, if Democrats regain control of the House, this investigation will likely go away. Now, I should say the chairman of the committee, Republican Brad Wenstrup, has said he won't be seeking re-election, but he insists that all along his mission has been one of oversight, bringing to light the government's response to this extremely deadly pandemic. Amira?
More to come for sure. Christine Frizzell reporting in Washington, D.C. Thank you. Fresh off his victory in Iowa, Trump looks ahead to New Hampshire, why the field could look a bit different very soon as the 2024 election gets kicked off here. A $3.8 billion airline merger in court. Why the federal government wants the deal to fail. And then severe weather and extreme cold is having an impact in hospitals, forcing them to make drastic decisions for their patients. We'll be right back. Former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson is dropping out of the GOP presidential nomination race. This follows the decisive victory former President Donald Trump had in last night's Iowa caucuses. Hutchinson finished 6th in yesterday's contest, and he is the latest to call it quits. Chris Christie, of course, dropped out last week, and Vivek Ramaswamy concluded his campaign last night after finishing 4th. Turnout at the Iowa caucuses, they were the lowest seen in years. Nearly complete vote tally showed just over 108,000 voters showed up compared to the last contest. That was in 2016, roughly 187,000 people casting ballots then. In 2012, nearly 122,000 people participated. Experts say both the sub-zero temperatures and the high likelihood that Donald Trump was going to win likely factored in to those low numbers. And looking ahead, New Hampshire votes on Tuesday. This is when the campaign season starts to get really chaotic, and the race may look much different. Chief political correspondent Scott Thuman is on the trail in snowy Iowa with more.
Well, he said he was going to win big, and it turns out Donald Trump did just that and then some, taking the state by more than any Republican in history. Now the candidates take this race east to New Hampshire, which will have a huge say in what happens next.
The big night is going to be in November when we take back our country, and truly, we do make our country great again. Thank you.
Riding high from landing the first big blow in this brutal campaign, Donald Trump off to New Hampshire for next Tuesday's primary, which just a week ago looked very different, seen as a four-way fight before Chris Christie dropped out amid calls to consolidate the field. And then Monday night, Vivek Ramaswamy also calling it quits.
I called Donald Trump to tell him that I congratulate him on his victory, and now going forward, he will have my full endorsement.
But if the polls hold true, it could be a slightly closer contest than Iowa was. On average, Trump still has a sizable 13-point lead over Nikki Haley, but nowhere near the roughly 30-point difference he enjoyed in Iowa.
As we head to New Hampshire, I have one more thing to say. We're gonna win! underestimate me because that's always fun.
She believes the Granite State will solidify her momentum and help her top Ron DeSantis after he squeaked out a second place in Iowa.
We represent a chance to reverse the madness that we've seen in this country.
History plays a part too. In 2016, Trump won New Hampshire in easy fashion, doubling up on John Kasich, Ted Cruz, Jeb Bush, and Marco Rubio, and Trump banking on a repeat performance. And if his comments Monday night after winning in Iowa were any indication as to how his narrative in New Hampshire will go, Donald Trump made it clear he's focusing on beating Biden, not just his GOP rivals. In Des Moines, Scott Thuman for the National Desk.
Scott, thank you. A proposed buyout of Spirit Airlines by JetBlue rejected in federal court. It's a win for the Department of Justice, who sued to stop the merger, saying it would raise low-end airline prices. JetBlue had a deal in place to buy Spirit for $3.8 billion in a hope to compete with larger airline companies like United, Delta, and American and Southwest. Neither airline immediately responded to the ruling today. Drinking 1 glass of 100% fruit juice a day is contributing towards weight gain, especially in children. That's the conclusion of health doctors and professors after reviewing recent studies on the matter. 1 8-ounce glass of orange juice is the equivalent of eating 3 oranges. The American Academy of Pediatrics suggests no juice for infants, less than 4 ounces a day for toddlers, and up to 6 ounces a day for children between the ages of 3 and 6. Adults should also limit their juice intake, but it is, of course, still healthier than sodas. A mental health program that focuses on troubled teens is quietly changing lives. Medical reporter Liz Bonas shares how Boys to Men is a national model for long-term success.
Hey there, everybody. This is a story about people. These 3 people: Anthony Jones, Tyrese Banks-Dorn, and Alan Evans. Their lives came together in Boys to Men, but they're just a small sample of the hundreds of families on which this program has had a remarkable impact.
I was a troublemaker.
Alan started in Boys to Men after his dad died. His mom, Yolanda, insisted on it after she says he pretty much had stopped talking.
I just knew that I needed to get help. And so whatever I needed to do, I was going to do it.
Tyrese joined Boys to Men after his parents separated, and he
started displaying some behavior issues in junior high school and everything like that.
Both said this 6-month group therapy program that meets once a week for about 8 hours gave them the feeling that somebody cared. Somebody did.
Most people don't know this. I do not have any biological sons. These boys over the years have been my sons.
Mr. Anthony started Boys to Men more than 2 decades ago when he saw a need as a youth therapist here at Ohio's Central Clinic Behavioral Health. Its goal?
We're trying to make these boys become men in their lives, be responsible, be citizens of the community, doing positive things. We talk about that. We talk about fatherhood because a lot of them do not have fathers.
What's unique about it is that Mr. Anthony picks up the boys later in the day on Saturday. He keeps them through Saturday evening to reduce the odds they'll get into weekend trouble. As Alan knows,
Saturday, that's where most of the days where people do crazy stuff.
Boys to Men meets at a local community center where they do everything from group sports to group chats.
They have problems in school, if they have issues at home, we address those things in a group setting.
But mostly what happens there, Tyrese told me, that changed his life.
It took me very far. It definitely changed my behaviors in a lot of ways.
Is they listen to each other and to Mr. Anthony.
We talk about 3 things: We talk about the mental aspects, which is learning to think and learning to be a good role model. We talk about the physical aspect, which is staying fit and trying to work out. And so we do recreational activities to kind of keep the boys in shape. And then also the spiritual, which means, you're going to stay out of trouble. You're not going to do the wrong things. You're going to try to do the right things. You can tell when a boy turns the corner because he begins to understand that.
Both Alan and Tyrese now credit Mr. Anthony with helping them do the right things and get on the right path. Alan is training to be a welder.
It changed a lot. I honestly can't say what my life would be like if he wasn't in there.
Tyrese is now a college athlete studying psychology.
That's what I'm trying to do for Mr. Anthony, since what he's done for me.
That's the premise of the program, is to try to make them understand what it is they need to do as they become men.
Both young men now also volunteer with Boys to Men to try to help other teens turn their lives around. This program doesn't charge families, but they do need to be a client of the clinic. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
What an impactful program. Coming up, snow days are traded for cold days. We assess the state of school closures across the country due to low temperatures. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America.
Tacoma General Administrators tell Como News humidity is the culprit in this cold-fueled crisis. As the temps drop, so do humidity levels inside the hospital. And according to hospital workers, that means vital medical equipment in the operating rooms are at risk of electrostatic discharge or fire if things get too dry. As a result, elective surgeries are being put off here until the weather warms up. In the meantime, Como News learned some elective surgeries are now being referred to other hospitals.
We're trying to shift them around and keep them on schedule or, reschedule them for a later time if it's not anything, if it's something that can wait a few days as well.
Given that the weather is headed for a warm-up, hospital workers expect elective surgeries to start again within a few days.
With dangerously cold temperatures expected this week, the question becomes, is it too cool for school? Columbus School Superintendent Dr. Angela Chapman says her district errs on the side of safety.
We have a team that are out on the streets as early as 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, driving the routes and considering whether or not the conditions, the road conditions, the weather is just right for us to be able to proceed with our operations.
Columbus students are off until Thursday when temperatures will hopefully climb into the mid-20s.
We're hoping that we are able to open again on Thursday. We know that instructional time is the most precious commodity that we have, and so we want to do everything that we can within our locus of control to ensure that our doors stay open to our students and families.
I would say 3 times worse than anything I've ever seen from other storms.
Walking along Roger Wheeler State Beach, Rhode Islanders are assessing the damage recent storms have left behind.
Yeah, we just got here a few weeks ago and everything was fine, so.
It's very, very sad, you know. This is devastating, all these things, and it makes you wonder about the integrity of some of the footings, too. How far down they go, and obviously the fierceness of the ocean.
The beachfront properties on Sandhill Cove Road are in danger of collapsing as the coastline continues to erode.
Now to see this erosion, it's a tough thing to see, and I feel bad for these people with the houses.
And then this is all disappearing.
Pieces of these sand dunes washed away in the latest storms that also caused scareways to detach from several properties.
It's only a matter of time, right, for these houses.
Many cities across the country saw their first significant snow accumulation in years. What's the best thing to do on a snow day? That answer in 90 seconds. Well, take a look at this. After 2 years of no snow, the nation's capital sees its first significant snowfall, creating the perfect storm for an epic snowball fight. What else? This was called the Battle of Snoppenheimer, bright and early at 8:30 this morning.
It's mostly harmless fun.
Uh-oh, we're being targeted.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're on TV. You are a target, either being interviewed or interviewing.
It's kind of about like embracing your youth and kind of being a kid again, right? Like we're all out here working all the time, and we haven't had a snow day in DC in a while. So I think a lot of people just wanted to come out and have a good time together, you know.
Hey, who says DC has to be all about cynical politics? Sometimes it's just about two sides with no agenda other than to have a little bit of fun. We will leave it on that positive note. That does it for this edition of the National Desk. Be sure to join us for later editions. Just check your local listings. I'm Amira David. Thank you so much for watching.